Jeffrey Michael Avandi on Monday Morning Muse. It's happening.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most important muses from a good chunk of my life. And here we are, back at it in conversation, conversation that was interrupted for a good chunk of years. And in that time, we both found out that we are neurodivergent.
That's fair to say.
And we've been talking again over the past couple years, very sporadically, but as as was the case 28 years ago when we went out on our first date, like a conversation could go on and on and on. So why don't you a lot of the people, probably the majority of people who are listeners of Monday Morning Muse have no idea who you are or like have heard your name, but are like, okay, what? This is him? This is the ex-husband? Spoiler alert. So tell what, like, how do you introduce yourself to people now? You haven't
Uh,
introduced yourself to me since you were like, 16 or 17 years old. So go.
I mean, I don't know that it's terribly different. um, I'm I'm not even sure exactly how to answer the introduction of myself. It pretty much is to some extent. It's always been for me. I'm Jeff, and I want to talk with you about what the meaning of life is. Yeah, I mean, it's some framework for that, basically. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll try and read the other person to figure out what how to get them to talk about meaningful things as quickly as possible.
Hey, yeah. We were both the people in a room. I feel like my first like vague memories of you from before like I really knew who you were like being at the party at Lindsay's house where everyone was drinking and I was the one person who wasn't drinking. I was like the good girl in the corner like helping the people who were throwing up and just like observing like a little mouse like and we
Mm-hmm.
probably talked I don't know if we talked then, but I'm sure you were there because you lived down the street.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that you came to Isaac's birthday party and like teased
Mm-hmm.
me for having stuffed animals on my bed. And I'm 44 years old, still have stuffed animals all over my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we did shows together, and that's where we like, what do you remember? What do you remember of the early days? Because you met me when I was 16.
Yep. Um, yeah, I mean, from what I remember, right, we were early in the rehearsal process for Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
At the
Oh, look
way.
where the wind comes. Sorry.
No, and it's the floor creaks, the door squeaks. I mean, right? I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous on some level. We met. I was the villain, and you were the heroine. I mean, like it's it's I don't know what else to do but chuckle at it. But that
No,
was the context of.
it was a great setup. It was a great setup for many a joke in the
Yep.
decades to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know
Yeah.
backstage, whenever you did that number, I would be backstage in my little house in Lori's house. We had this tiny flat behind it, and we had to stay hidden. But there would be like, I don't remember who it was, but a couple of the kids who were like stage crew kids, and like maybe one other actor, maybe Tara. Like I don't remember.
Yeah.
Auntie,
I know.
not
Referring to.
Auntie M. What was it? Auntie whoever
Yep.
in Oklahoma, but she had she was the auntie version, right?
Yep. I know who
Auntie
you.
role. You
Right.
know who I'm talking about, Tara. I know her name was
Her
Tara.
last name is on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
I know. She was great, really sweet human, and we I would always lip sync to that song, your song, and I would be like super dramatic and silly about it. It was really fun. I don't know if I ever told you that.
That's funny. In that same stage when we were performing, I was so like on my like insistent attempt to try and embody like genuine method acting. So I
You
was I was
were Judd.
I was trying exactly. I was trying to get there an hour early and sit in the
The
Judd
darkness.
house and think about wanting to hurt everyone because nothing goes my way. And
Well, I was playing one of 1,000 ingenues that I played, and I'm so glad to be past that phase of my life, by the way. But I, I, so like I was also method acting, and that the ingenue just gets to kind of like flit about and be silly and adorable. So I was method acting too, Jeff Labonte,
right,
whatever.
right,
Cool.
right. Well, whereas Judd doesn't get much to be happy about. Which, of course, I have experienced now more than a few times on my journey that being a large human with a boomy voice and whatnot, I've done more than a few roles as the villain. Despite the fact that anybody that meets me in real life is like, you just smile ear to ear all day.
Well,
But
there's yeah. I mean, there's something about like the bodies that we show up in, right? Like on the planet.
right.
And we'll get to this in terms of our brains soon, but like the medium is the message. Like what
Mhm.
you are in, like that's what you're here to learn from somehow,
Mhm.
in my humble
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, we're embodying archetypes that people identify with in some ways, like
Mhm.
stories do.
Yeah, yeah. So we're probably just gonna like jump timelines over and over again in this, but you were being Judd. I was being the new girl in town. Like it's actually like Taylor Swift music that most brings me back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was so much about that time for me that was about being displaced from Hawaii. And you were the boy who like charmed me into going out on a first date. And because I was such a good Christian girl, I had to A, win your heart for Jesus, B, be as virtuous as possible, but still have some fun, and C, um, I don't know, marry you quickly so we could have sex.
Right.
And I did all of those things. I was an A plus, whatever I was. But but there was so much beauty to all of it. Like I think one of the things I think about the most when I think about our relationship is the musical Hymn.
Mhm.
And like I want to find Josh Jones again because like it's too common a name, but he's like one of the most magical people I've ever known. He played the role of
Mhm.
Jesus.
Mhm.
Go on a quest for him. There are people I know who probably are still in touch with him, but um we made so many beautiful things together in that time.
Mhm.
And I think yeah, but you say more now. What do you think about when you think about that time?
When I think about the things that the art that we made together, the music we made together, I think a lot about him. Obviously, was the first musical in the very Christian framework that we were operating in at that time. It was a musical about Jesus, and we weren't really trying to get very far outside the box like some of the musicals about Jesus have done. We were fairly in the box with a lot of it, but as I look back on it, there's some pretty freaking good music nonetheless. Pretty cool story.
Wait,
But
and like I haven't even heard the music since then. Like, do you have the written music?
I do still have. I don't think I ever actually. I mean, I wrote the music out mostly in jazz notation. A few of the songs, like the one that you opened with. Um, I'm
The
forgetting the
soul
name.
glorifies the Lord, whatever it was, yeah.
Yes, that one was actually written in a more classical, for piano. But most of it was written in more jazz notation with essentially just the melody and the chord structures. And then we had awesome musicians that
Oh
we
my,
got to work for it.
the Paris girls, Noelle and
Right.
Kristen.
Unbelievable. And the guy who played the drums, whose name eludes me, I mean, I'm pretty sure he went on to a career in studio drum work, or at least, did some things in that direction. He
Yeah.
was ridiculously good.
We
Uh,
launched so many careers, Jeff Labonte. We stayed in the shadows.
right.
Fine, whatever.
But like for me, a lot of that time with you, right? That we started with this super super Jesus freaky musical, in a lot of ways, and we did the God's Kids and Harambe thing where we were writing musicals every year, and it's sort of like the first couple were directly taken from the Bible, and then I forget what the third one was. Frankly, details don't matter that much, but in my narrative, what I remember very much is the last musical that we wrote together. I think we wrote it together. The Things That Go Unsaid,
Yep.
which was I think half self-aware and half just like ears plugged to what we were doing ourselves. But right, that story, for me, very much is a demonstration of how, because I think we did that one in 2004. It would have been, I think it was the spring of 2004 that we did that as we were on our way out from that church. But really, what that musical was about was our criticism. Or at least my criticism. I can't remember how much it was both of us involved, so I don't want to, say it was your place, but
We were very much in alignment at that time.
yeah, and so the musical itself was about when you were in the church choir or the very sort of rigid church context, how there are a lot of things that you're not allowed to say, and a lot of things that we end up burying underneath ourselves very deeply. That for many of us never get out, and but that's essentially what that was about for me, and it was definitely a huge step on my journey um, to seeing the teachings of Jesus in a very different light.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember if it was that show or the one before it, but we had these t-shirts made that said, God is not afraid of your questions. I wish I still had that t-shirt. I think I like wore it to death, but because I don't get rid of t-shirts. That's not how I roll. But like until they're like they have holes in them. But it's amazing to think about like yeah, we were writing our way, like we were creating, we were evolving together as we were in this pretty darn conservative, evangelical, fairly narrow, but also safe. Like that's one of the things I've learned is like narrow is also safe. Like there's a feeling of safety to that. And when I think about my journey through bipolar and with bipolar, my journey as a bipolar bear, like the fact that I was not diagnosed until I was 35 years old was largely because I was in very safe, very structured contexts my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Ish, And then I also like loved to explore and break the rules and play and figure out like how to be fully myself in whatever context I was. So, um, yeah, it's interesting to think about the creations. And I want to give you like a heads up that I am going to use some of the music from those days in the musical that I'm writing right now. And I'm writing most of the music for the musical, though there will be like little like lines from a lot of other things. I might actually, if you can find it, I might sing the Mary song again. I would love to sing that song, like a part of it at least, if you can send it to me, because I don't have that music anymore.
Well,
But
the other thing that I do have is I actually do still have a VHS tape of the musical.
oh my God,
Yeah,
now I just have to find a VCR. Yes, I love
yeah.
it.
Well, I do have the stuff to convert it. It's actually on my list of things to do. Yeah.
Oh, if you could send me the file, I would be just like to watch the whole thing again. I have multiple people in my life, my mom in particular, who would be like so happy. You would like make her Mother's Day for infinity. Not that it's Mother's Day, but
Hmm.
like
Well,
happy birthday, Kathy.
yeah, yeah.
But one thing that I wanted to share with you, is that one of the projects we did in those days when you were just starting, you had your like fledgling wings as a studio recording musician at that time. You
Hmm.
created your first little recording studio in the church. Um, and we recorded Sunnyhill Lane, the church worship band. And listening to that again
Hmm.
was very profound to me because some of the songs like there were like original songs but also like old hymns. I think we were just like
Right.
choosing anything that we wouldn't have to pay to sing basically, right? Like
Yeah.
old music and our own music. And your music, like to me there are parts of it that sound prophetic. Have you listened to that recently?
No, I have not listened to it in a very long time. I do still have a copy of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
The
have not listened to it.
Yeah, the other recording that blew my mind recently was re-listening to a recording of the Holocaust Cantata that we did with Alan Harler at Temple University with the concert.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
Hmm.
still in touch with Alan? We're like spread.
No, no.
He's such a beautiful soul. And
Oh, yeah.
anyway, but like there's recordings of you and I, we both did spoken things in the Holocaust Cantata that are like painfully beautiful what we got to do. And it's like
Yeah.
I'll send you those audio files. I have a friend, like I don't have the equipment right now, but I have a friend who's ripping them onto MP4s or MP3s or
Yeah.
whatever the kids are using these days. Um, I'll send them to you. But like what I wanted to say about Sunny Hill Lane is that there are a lot of parts of it that I'm like, is there like a magical thing where if you write a song about something and or sing it enough, it becomes true? Like, is that part of how life works? Because there are things that I'm like, whoa, like you say, like, yeah, you'll have to listen and see what lines resonate with you now. But one thing that I find really interesting is that there was a song that I received sitting slash kneeling in the grass of Manoa Presbyterian Church on Sunnyhill Lane and Manoa Road, or no, Eagle Road. Um, and it was the song Prayer to a Faithful Father. Now,
Right, right.
interestingly, I did not remember that that was what I had entitled that song. I
Hmm.
thought of it as You Are Faithful all these years later because that's how the chorus goes. You are faithful. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I remember vividly that when I brought that song to you, you added four words to the end of it and to the end of the chorus. And because I was the good Christian girl that I was, the good Christian wife at that time, at the tender age of 19 or something, 20, whatever it was, I was like, okay, good idea, Jeff. I like that. But now when I listen to it, I'm like, that version works for like evangelicalism and patriarchy. And hey, I named it Prayer to a Faithful Father. Why not? But those four words, if you take them out, are so much more resonant with what I know to be true in my heart. So like I'm like, that was a gift of the Holy Spirit, which, as you probably are well aware, is mostly thought of as a feminine energy by people who are not within a patriarchal worldview. Um, I received that song as an ungendered and a nameless expression of like prayer to like from a place of contrition slash of needing healing. Anyway, do you remember that song at all? You probably don't even remember
Yeah.
it.
Oh, no, no. I absolutely remember the song you're referring
Do
to.
you
Yeah.
remember the four words that you added?
No, I can't say I remember
That's okay,
that.
okay, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's okay.
I'm trying to dig deep.
Can I just sing the chorus for you?
Go right ahead. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I won't sing the verses. I'm gonna just sing the chorus. So the chorus goes. I'm gonna take a breath. I'm gonna take a breath. I'm gonna take a sip of water. You are faithful to forgive us our sin, and you are faithful to heal us again. You are faithful to send us forth in your power. That was the song I received. That was the chorus. And you added
Of
in
your holy name.
of your holy name.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. That was I heard it coming.
yep, yep, yeah. So it's interesting because I'm like, there's a lot of like, so this musical that I'm writing, that I'm co-creating right now, it has like a timeline that is specific, and you are not part of that timeline of my life, but of course
Mhm.
you're part of all of my life from the age of 15 when I met you at Isaac's birthday party, 10 days before I turned 16. And you were part of it before then because you and Isaac did Love, Sex, and the IRS together that fall. So I'd seen you. You were the lead guy
Yeah.
in that show. And so I was
Hmm.
already like, oh, there's that guy. He's the famous guy who does that show. And I played the tiny role in the understudy cast of that show, right? So little did I know that soon I would be the lead. Yay! But yeah, like you're always going to be part and parcel and like background music, right? Like even like I'm looking at your wall right now. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Moulin Rouge, we just saw that on Broadway, David and I, right? Like,
Yeah.
and there's this sense of like I love the way that brains work, and you know a lot about how brains work. We both know a lot more than we ever thought we would know because we both have had interesting things happen with our brains. You're like maybe the one close person in my life who has had even more interesting things happen with your brain than I've had happen with my brain.
Doesn't have to be a more or less.
It's not a competition. In this case, I'm
But
not
I
sure
get.
you're
I
winning.
also, when you've had chunks taken out of your brain, right? A lot of people are like, "Whoa, that's a big deal."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess all this is to say, like, in the storyline, like it covers a period of time in my life, but it jumps backward and forward in time a lot in terms of the music that comes in. And that is one song that will be like sung the whole thing. And part of it will be my version that I received in its purity, and part of it will be the version that we changed it into,
Hmm.
because it was very, very consensual on my part at that time to change it. Because, for some people, the nameless feels more resonant, like for some people, an experience of God or the beyond or universe or whatever you want to call it, as I've said for years, I think I started saying that when we were still together, like God
Hmm.
slash the universe slash whatever you want to call it. Um, which now that I'm thinking about it, saying slash makes it sound a little bit like a slasher movie or something, which that's a weird genre to pull in. But um, for some people, the nameless does feel more true. And that might be how I feel at my deepest heart of heart. And the names are important. Like,
Hmm.
so anyway,
One of my favorite books that I remember from like the class in seminary that is like the one I remember the most, which was the critiques of Christianity. Well, it's two. It's the one from Gordon Conwell, which was critiques of Christianity, where we read Freud and Nietzsche and all of those things. And of course, in that conservative Christian framework, it was all we have to read all these terrible things that have been written about God so that we know how to argue about them when our congregants say, what about the idea that, and one of the books that we read in that was John Hicks' iconic, Princeton Theological. I believe that's where he where God has many names. And it's a very
who's
short,
the
but
author of that?
I think it's John Hicks, but don't quote me because me and names that got taken out of my brain, right? So,
Okay. Well, let
um,
me just pause you for a second to say that John Hicks is the name of my musical director for 44.4 the musical. So it's just like a very weird synchronicity. But back to you. I'm sure there are a lot of people named John Hicks. Continue.
yeah, right. It's not that, and right. The great what he opens with in the book, which I know I have shared with you before, but I you know me, I like to share things more than once.
It's not on my
Uh,
shelf, so.
the concept that what you had before mankind started to create large scale empires, what was going on in the world, and really even from a certain point of view before the industrial era, what you had in the world was these tribes. It's a metaphor. These tribes that are marching through a valley, and they have songs that they sing, and they have flags that they wave, and they have symbols that they bow to, and they have dances that they like to do together. And then there's a mountain that they can't get over. And on the other side of the mountain, there's another valley. And there's another people who look totally different. And they sing totally different songs. And they tell totally different stories and dance different dances. And then there's another mountain and another valley and another mountain and another valley. And what happens in the modern era is the communication technologies and transportation technologies that happened before we were born created a world where all of these different streams that had created these mythologies and these narratives of various very different types. You know, if you earnestly go looking at the different streams, there's actually there's some overlapping core, but there's also a lot of big differences. And what happened in the modern era, from the framework that he's coming from, is all of these different tribes come out into a valley, and and essentially what we've been living through for the last 100 years or so is humans from these different tribes that used to be able to be isolated, and the fundamental division being between whether what we should be doing is insisting that our flags are the right flags and our songs are the best songs and our dances are better, and or do we come out of the mountain range into the plains and go, huh, those are interesting songs,
Right,
those are
right.
interesting dances.
I want to
And
learn your dances.
right, and I do think that's quite a realistic, broad brush vantage point on what's going on in our civilization even today. Quite,
Yes, I love it. I'm gonna have to read it. Thanks for reminding me that you had already told me about it multiple times.
you know what I mean?
So let's talk a little bit about neurodivergence because that is something we share that is a big part of what brought us back together again all these many years later.
Yeah. I mean, should I just share some of the fundamentals of my journey?
Yeah, yeah. Give like
Yeah.
the clip note. You see a lot of people, I mean, and this is another thing, is like when people get divorced or split up and things are messy, which they're kind of always messy, even if the both of the people were pretty nice about it to each other. Like there's a lot of, as the great Shawn Mendes says, we don't have to be ordinary. Do you know the song I'm singing?
I think I do. Yeah.
Um, make your best mistakes, 'cause we don't have the time to be sorry. Baby, be the life of the party. But the line I'm trying to get to, I'm singing it out of order, is take your shot, it might be scary. Hearts are gonna break, but we don't have the time to be sorry. So baby, be the life of the party. Anyway, I was teaching middle school when that came out, so of course I had to sing it with middle schoolers. And that was post you, so you wouldn't have heard me sing that all the time. But hearts broke, things got messy, apologies were made, but they were imperfect, as apologies almost always are. And there were always there are camps, right? So like there are plenty of people in my life who are still my dear, dear, dear friends who like maybe like wave at you and they're polite when they see you at the Y. And who love you again because I love you again, but were ready to punch you in the face if I needed them to, but never did because we were all too nice about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, most of us deserve a punch in the face every once in a while, right?
Speak for yourself, Jeff Labonte. I was very nice. I was too nice, was part of the problem, actually. I was like
Mm-hmm.
too good and too kind. I didn't even express my anger for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to you and your story. Give us the Cliffs Notes. Like, what did you learn about yourself since we split up in the spring, the painful spring of 2008?
Um, well, I mean, the fundamentals of what I learned about is that those years, as we started to uh, become less together, or something like that, there, what was going on in my world was something far bigger than anything having to do with us, or because what was actually going on was that my undiagnosed epilepsy was getting much worse, and I was having clusters of what are now called focal aware seizures. Back then, they were called partial seizures. They change the names of this stuff constantly. Neurologists, like, they can't just pick a word for anything. But basically, I was having these very regular experiences of focal aware seizures, which basically means you're not shaking on the ground like seizures mean to most people. But what's going on is that a part of my brain is having a seizure, which is basically a feedback loop where, when a brain wave sends out a wave, it's a 99.9% chance it's going to go to the next brain wave. What happens in folks that have epilepsy is it becomes 100% chance, and it just simply becomes quite a literal feedback loop. And for some people, it's the whole brain. For me, it's a little piece, and every once in a while, it spreads to the whole brain. But at the time, all that I was having, or all that I remember having, because I could have had some when others weren't around, all that I remember was having these focal aware seizures actually quite frequently. And mine come with this sense of euphoria and this sense that, I've got something deeply meaningful on my mind, and literally, like, I'm on my way graduating, working my way, finishing a conservative seminary, and letting go of that journey, and meanwhile on a journey that I didn't understand, but very much became the center of my world for the next 15 years or so, because mine got progressively worse and worse, and the seizure started generalizing and becoming tonic-clonics much more, to the extent that I started having, I mean, at times I would have clusters of 3, 5, 7, just back to back to back to back to back, which become extremely, extremely dangerous for one's brain. And so it sent me down a long journey of working with neurologists, which taught me that the medicines didn't really work for my epilepsy, and it kept getting worse to the point that I was having about 500 epileptic events a year. And so brain surgery was pretty much the only hope for my world to not just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And so that was, for me, it was a choice that I spent some time on. They don't force you to. It is an elective surgery. But after a while, I decided to go down that stream, which basically was they detected that where my seizures start was in my left temporal lobe, and they wanted to take about a golf ball and a half of my brain. Not that I had a tumor. They wanted to take a golf ball and a half of that part of my brain out, because that was the pathway where that was the initiation point, they thought, and the pathway that it took to generalize. And so the idea was that either they're getting out the initiation point, or they're getting in the way of the path for it getting worse. And that worked pretty well. Almost, I didn't actually have anything that I recognized as an epileptic event for about a year after. I think I was having some, but I didn't know what they were. They had changed, which is very normal. And then suddenly mine got a bunch worse. My initiation point had not been taken out. They came to find, and it had found a new pathway. And so my seizures had changed, but hadn't really. They had become less frequent, but had gotten worse in some ways. And so I had a second surgery where they, as they put it, you got to laugh about some things. It was only about a half a golf ball they were taking out the second time.
Only two golf balls total.
Yeah, two golf balls total of brain. Exactly. It's a point of pride at this point, but
Funny because it makes me think of it just like brings me back to like, ooh, sorry, I should turn my ringer off. It brings me back to um brings me back to how you caddied as like, what was that in high school that you caddied at Lower Merion?
I mean, it was. I think it was right after high school. I think it
Yeah.
was like after we had gotten back. I think it was like freshman year.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. See, like my mind's the way my bipolar mind makes is like a lot of connections, just like seeing so many connections. And like in
Mm-hmm.
my mind, I'm like, they took two golf balls out of your brain. Had you ever gotten hit by a golf ball? And when you caddied at Marion, and I'm like, I just saw in a game at the cabin I was at this weekend with my girls, um, a like a thing with like famous lines from movies and the movie Caddyshack, and you made me watch that, and I thought it was so stupid. Why is he making me watch this? And I'm also thinking about like, oh, Lower Merion. Didn't Kobe Bryant play for Lower Merion when we were when we were
Oh,
in high school, right?
yes.
And like,
One of my memories from
yeah.
childhood is singing the Star-Spangled Banner at the Haverford Lower Merion game, where literally it was packed. There were NBA scouts
Of
there.
course there
I got
were.
to sing Star Spangled Banner for that one, which I was very proud of.
Of course you were, you badass.
That was my connection with Kobe.
Well, and you're welcome, Kobe. Again, we've always been like putting people on the map, but peripherally. We're the ones who stay in the shadows. You were the wind beneath his wings that night, I'm sure, Jeff Labonte.
All right, yeah. But so yeah, so kind of the other thing when I had that second surgery, what the doctors basically said was that they didn't actually think there was that good of a chance that they were going to be able to get the initiation point of my seizures. And so they wanted at the same time that they were going to take out that half a golf ball, they wanted to install what is called an RNS device, which is a responsive neurostimulator. So I have an implant in my brain. The part of it is on the outside, and then wires run into my brain where to around where my seizures initiate, and they're like a pacemaker. They're giving me shocks at a certain
That's so
frequency, and
amazing.
yep, and so that's constantly happening to me. And the device is also constantly doing an EEG on that region of my brain, charting what my brain waves are doing. And every morning, I have a wand that I hold over that part of my head, and it sends a signal which gets downloaded to the company that makes them, and then AI evaluates my brain and everybody with an RNS's brain and learns from it, and then the following day, based on what it's learned, it downloads to my device a new way of responding accordingly to what it's learned. And as I like to put it, I am an early stage cyborg.
I was about to say you also are a fairy. You have a magic wand because I have been given magic wands by people on multiple occasions because of my associations with the fairy kingdom. But that's a whole
See,
other
that's
story.
not magic. Mine's just science,
Yours is just science. Okay. Well,
which is intended to be tongue
but
in
it
cheek.
seems pretty magical to me, Jeff Labonte.
Yes, and so I mean, what's been the most remarkable? So it's been about 4.5 years now since then, four and change. And on some level, some of the most remarkable stuff that I have experienced is that despite the hundreds of pages of side effect warnings that I was handed, well, I have lived through years of some pretty horrible side effects. My brain and neuroplasticity have have worked some just miracles, and somehow after all of that, I feel like myself, which many people who've had this surgery would not say, and And I feel like I didn't need those two golf balls that bad, you know.
Well, you also have an unusually large melon, which so do I.
I do. I've been told this. It's like so I could spare a couple golf balls, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out for you. Well, and also your dad had brain surgery while we were together, which is
Yes, and his was unrelated. He had just had a benign tumor that had been growing for 30 years
yeah,
at the back of his brain.
yeah.
We often do go back and forth because so my dad had a brain surgery. I've had four brain surgeries, and my grandfather, my mother's dad, had he died of brain cancer, and he had several brain surgeries before he passed when my mom was 12.
Interesting. I'm thinking just
Yeah.
about like, things go in cycles and like in right? It's fascinating.
And one of the things that it makes me go like, damn, Denise, you have had to go through way too many brain
Oh
surgeries
my
to the people closest to you.
precious Denise. She also like both she and my current mother-in-law, Cheryl, the most amazing, loving mothers-in-law. Like, I have been so gifted with mother energy in my lifetime. It's like not even fair how many amazing mamas I've gotten. And like, I think like losing her at the time was like harder than losing you. Your dad too, like losing your family was harder because like I was choosing that I wanted out of this marriage. And like I also knew because you told me at the time, you were like, you know, 30 years from now, we're like I don't remember what you said, but you like we knew we would talk again because we had such an important connection. And like, but I'll never forget pumping gas on my way out of town the first, I forget if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas after we split up, and how they were at the same gas pump of all, I mean, it was, right in Havertown. So of course they were. Of course they were. And like we had not had any communication. Like I had reached out to them. Written this like beautiful, tearful, heartfelt email saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you, whatever. And like I mean they were protecting you and like protecting themselves from like they didn't want to get into it at that time and
Mm-hmm.
like have to like pump gas next to them and have them like totally ignore me and then in the last like 10 seconds before I left, your dad pretended like he was just seeing me for the first time and was like, "Oh, hi." Like nothing had ever happened. Like I was the girl who sang in chorus with their son all those years ago, not the girl who had like broken his heart 9 months before. It was heartbreaking, but also understandable. Anyway,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
been gas in Havertown. I'll write a song about it someday.
Yeah, yeah.
But your parents, your family's amazing. I love them still.
They're
And
pretty
yeah,
good.
Denise has gone through too many brain surgeries. I didn't remember that about her dad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Denise has lived through trauma from birth. Yeah, I mean, literally, her twin sister being uh, uh, mentally disabled to the age of 4 and blind and having to live in a home basically her entire life. Still living. My mom still takes meticulous care of her. Calls about every single thing that she gets any contact about, which she gets lots of contact because she's the one in charge uh, of
Remind me,
her sister's care.
remind me of her sister's name. I forget her name.
Donna,
Donna,
Donna Pasquale.
Donna
Mm-hmm.
Pasquale. I
And,
remember
and
Pasquale, but I forgot about
you
Donna.
want to know? You want to know? I mean, the other like Donna has epilepsy too. Yeah,
Oh,
sometimes as well. Hers. So epilepsy can be caused by a bazillion things and caused by nothing. Hers is very clearly caused by developmental brain damage. It's
yeah.
it's the reality.
Brains. Jeff Labonte. So we've already been talking a long time, and it's going to be my bedtime fairly soon, which will not shock you. You know, I'm early to bed, early to rise person. Um, I've talked about bipolar on Monday Morning Muse a decent bit already. And maybe you and I will geek out more about brains at some point in the not too distant future. I do
Wouldn't
think, say that again.
wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do a live recording in person when I'm in Philly next, maybe. That would be fun if we can pull
Sounds
it
good.
logistically. But
I'll be up that way some too in the coming months.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
cool. Well then,
part of what
yeah.
I'm going through in my current stage, which maybe we'll talk about in the future, part of that is going to involve some visiting of some old familiar places.
I love that for you. Please call me. I want to be part of it in whatever way feels good to you.
For sure.
Um, yeah. Let's take a walk down Crane Beach, Jeff Labonte.
Yeah, it's still a deeply, deeply special place for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you go fishing, I'll take my kayak. I still have the
Yeah.
kayak. Yeah.
I mean, I might even say it's my favorite place in the world, actually.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I
Oh,
think that's actually fair. Yeah.
okay. Fair enough. It's still sacred space for me as well.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I want to leave our listeners with is some of what we've learned about for ourselves, like some just like random specific, like we'll just riff on each other here, things that are helpful for like providing both soul solace and like just practical go-to things that are helpful for the health of our unusual brains that we think might apply to other people, like the general population who are not quite so divergent, because everyone's at least a little divergent.
I mean, yeah, I think one of those things for me, having gone through now 20 years of trauma, very complicated trauma, which is ongoing um, on my journey. Um, it has taught me a lot about learning to be in the moment and learning not to think much about tomorrow, at least not to think too much about tomorrow. And I remember my my mentor on this epilepsy journey has become Tony Coelho, who is one of the primary drafters of the American Disabilities Act. He's the first non-white national congressman in American history, and somehow I coincidentally met him through my current wife teaching his husband or his life partner a human sexuality class.
Go
And
figure.
then that was just shortly before my brain surgery, and so we connected with Tony and Bobby, and have been friends. And when Tony has talked to me, because he's had epilepsy since he was a child, literally taken to witch doctors to by his very 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 Christian parents to try to have the witch the demons taken out of him and on his journey and what he says because his epilepsy is still going and he's done remarkable things with his life. He says the secret is I don't think about it much. And when he first said that to me, I was still in a place where like, how the fuck do you not think about that? Like having chunks of your brain taken out and the fact that like, I mean, and yet since this journey with the surgeries and with him, I have come to appreciate that the full circle, if we let ourselves go through the full circle of genuinely welcoming the trauma, genuinely learning to smile with it and even laugh at it. That's how we get, I think, to a place where it stops being such a dominant thought
I love
that
that.
get in the way of so many other more important thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you talk about laugh, and that's where gonna pick up that ball and run with it, and also say how beautiful that we both have gotten many amazing mentors and teachers in our life throughout this journey. And I think when I come back to when I come back to you, Jeff Labonte, one of the one of the central love stories that we were obsessed with was Moulin Rouge, right? We loved that. And like it was such a mixtape. Like it was like the first movie that made mixtapes into a genre, basically. Like I mean, I
Right.
don't think they called it that, but like at the center of that is the quote that is on your wall right now.
Mm-hmm.
Will you sing it?
I,
Sing it like
I
you
have
did in the movie.
the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
It's good.
And of course, to give the proper credit, it's for Moulin Rouge, but the original piece that Moulin Rouge is quoting was written technically by Aiden Abes, which he brought to Nat King Cole. And the most well known version of it is Nat King Cole's. Aiden Abes was a mystic. He lived in Hollywood, kind of didn't have a home, and he was a very interesting character, fascinating stories, and he had this tune that he had wrote that he somehow got to Nat King Cole, and it was one of Nat King. I think it may even have been like Nat King Cole's like first big hit or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but that's the actual backstory that leads it to Moulin Rouge.
I love that. I I love that you know all that. I'm gonna have to put like so many like so many tags on this post because of like all the like famous people we're referencing. Like it's gonna be like my largest number of references in a Substack episode. But but what I was gonna say about that line is that it's about learning, that life is about learning.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I both have been so curious about each other, right? In the early phase of our relationship. So intrinsically, adamantly fascinated with what it means to be human, with what it means to be in connection to what is beyond us, from evangelical Christianity and me roping you right into that world. You were leading a worship band within like 2 months or something at the church, right? Like,
Yeah, and it was all your fault, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, like I take the credit and the blame, right?
I mean, if we're gonna be honest, while we did our fidelity did pretty well, there were some things that you did that calmed me a little bit at that stage.
Yeah, we conned each other. That's the nature of being adolescent and in love. Is like you just use whatever you've got to like bring the other person in, right?
Yep.
Say it again. You cut out
No,
first.
no, I was communicating with my current wife, who's just coming up to the room and ready for bed too.
Good, good. Oh, good. She's another early to bed, early to rise. Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. Can I sing to you a song to finish up?
Sure.
Okay. This is a song that came to me when I was a child that I sing to everyone when they join me on the Monday Morning Muse. And I usually start with it, but it feels good that we're ending with it. We're just doing things out of order, which you and I have both done pretty consistently throughout our lives. So I'm going to look into your eyes, Jeff Labonte. I'm remembering that my story about eyes with you came from Kathy Fisher's 30th birthday party, where you couldn't remember the color of my eyes. And I was like, how can you not remember the color of my eyes? Because we both have blue eyes. Like, it's like looking in a mirror when we look at each other's eyes. Like, what are you thinking? Anyway, but
I'm
now
so non-visual. I
it's
don't pay attention to it.
it's so funny. Anyway, but I'm gonna look into your eyes the best I can through not FaceTime, through a Zoom lens and sing to you this song, which has many variations depending on who I sing it to. When I look into your eyes, I see everything, everyone in every storybook. 'Cause I love your love, and I love your joy, and I love your peace. Oh, the wonders of your world, the beauty that came springing up like flames and fountains, perilous unfound. Oh, the discord and delight, the bliss that came so powerfully between us as we parted in the night. The song doesn't have an ending yet, but I'll get there eventually.
Beautiful song,
Thank you. And thank you for this time. I really appreciate you.
for sure.
Yeah.
Been a
Here's
pleasure.
here's to the ongoing conversation. So it's a water
Indeed.
bottle from UTech. Go UTech. Mad love. Oh, sorry, local nonprofit. They're awesome. Um, but one of their taglines is respect, one of their principles, their values is respectful curiosity. So may that continue throughout our lives, and may we continue to learn what it means to love and be loved in return.
Sounds like a plan.
Do you want to say a final benediction, Jeff Levanti? You did go to seminary, but you're a UU now.
uh,
I don't remember if they do benedictions.
we do. It's it's universalism. So the benedictions are pretty catch-all. If you come here seeking God, may God go with you. If you come to seek away, I don't even remember it word for word, but the it's just go on your journey the way that it takes you.
I love that. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
do you know Rabindranath Tagore?
Maybe it's a name.
Beautiful poet, beautiful poet. I'm going to send you something of his later, but he has a line that is something like, I slept and dreamt that life is joy. I awoke and saw that life is service. I acted and knew that service is joy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm just offering you a little poetry because you're in a UU church now. It would be a good
I know.
benediction, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the final post benediction request is just for anybody who might be interested. Would you post a link to a YouTube video that I'll send you, which is just seizure first aid, because it is an undertaught, understood thing that for those of us with epilepsy, the world would be a lot easier if it was just common knowledge how to help us with a simple, not kind of thing.
Your training that you did?
Yeah, well, I would actually be more inclined to put on one of the, really good formal ones that can be shorter.
Let's do
You
both
can
ones. Let's do both because
well,
I loved yours that you sent me. Like I've shared that. It's beautiful.
that does come with a lot more details.
Yeah, okay. We'll post both. I love it. Thank you for thinking of that. You are a beautiful human. I'm grateful that you're in my life.
Same to you. Which way do I have to go to get my hands there?
Yeah. Be well and blessings on you and your people.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.